Was monotheism ever the foundational belief when you look at the use of these terms? A lot of times people, they look at these and they run with it, especially your skeptics, and they say that the Bible is trash. Get rid of it. Because in their mind, these appear to be errors. Not so. All it takes is an understanding of how the Most High is bringing forth this knowledge and this wisdom. But he has to show it forth in his word. The problem with all of the contradiction that arises in the different religions is because men get involved and they try to interpret the word on their own, and that leads people astray. When you want understanding, as was asked at the outset of this particular lesson, understanding of the word can only come from the giver of the word, which is the Creator himself. Okay? So, let's turn to the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, beginning at verse 18, just to get a thought. It reads, "For thus saith Yahweh," okay, "that created the heavens, Ha Elohim himself." In other words, the gods himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am Yahweh, and there is none else. In other words, Yahweh is acknowledging, as far as mighty ones go, there is no other. Let's go to chapter 46. Now, in verse 18 of chapter 45, it begins this particular discourse, which continues through chapter 46. And we want to go to verse 9. In verse 9 it reads, "Remember the former things of old, for I am Ah." Now, what's interesting about that, this is Yahweh who is speaking, but he acknowledges that he is Aleph Lamed, which is mighty one. Okay? But what's interesting about this particular verse, he says, "For I am Al, and there is none else. Elohim, and there is none like me." So what's interesting in that verse, once again, he acknowledges himself as being the Aleph Lamed, or mighty one, or power. But at the same time, he acknowledges himself as being, let's get this word back up on the board for example sake. Elohim, which means mighty ones. And this is the term that we're going to use from this point on, in reference to Elohim, mighty ones. So he acknowledges himself as being both of these particular titles. So how does that work? If we want to discover the truth about God, we have to go to the Word and ask that question, what is being taught here? Okay? What is Yeshayahu talking about? Well, what's interesting is this. He's talking about the exact same thing that Moshe brings out when he gave Shema. Now, in Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 4, which reads in the Hebrew, "Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh Achad." In other words, when you translate that, listen, Israel, Yahweh, our mighty one, Yahweh is unity, oneness. In other words, that Elohim that you know and understand functions as one unit, yet composed of many. But we want to come to understand exactly what that is, because that's what the Bible teaches. One unit, okay, but composed of many. And he taught that to us. And we want to see. So, contrary to the corrupted doctrine of polytheism, which in many cases has the gods or goddesses warring against one another. Yahweh Elohim is united, meaning they work together. Now let's prove that from his word. Let's prove that. Let's get this off. Now, in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26, and I'm sure many of you have heard this particular passage before, it reads, and Elohim said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Now, if it wasn't intended to represent a plurality, the question that I'm sure many people have discussed and debated for years, why does it use the term na'asher, which means let us make? So let's prove that. The term na'asher is written this way in the Hebrew. None Aleph Shin Hey. Okay, and the word Na Ashe. Okay, Na Ashe, which has been translated in Genesis 1:26. Let us make. Okay, now what you want to do, what you want to research, is this spelling. Nun, Aleph, Shin, Hey. Okay? Nun, Aleph, Shin, Hey. I'm going to put some other scriptures up on the board for you. Just give me a moment. And the purpose of this direction that we're going is to establish the plurality of the Most High. Okay, this is what I wanted to see. Again, I had to verify something, and I stand corrected. And I don't have a problem with that. Nun, Ayin, Shin, Hey. Had to make that correction. Okay, so now, the word Na'aseh, let us make. So let's go back, and I'm going to write 3 verses up on the board. The first one is in Exodus chapter 19, verse 8, where the term Na'aseh is translated as we will do. Okay? In Numbers 32, 31, the phrase, again, we will do. Na'aseh. And Joshua 1:16. Okay? Will we do? And once again, we will do. Okay? So again, the term Nun Ayin, and once again I apologize for making the mistake of putting the Aleph in place of the Ayin for those who are watching. Nun Ayin Shin He. Na'aseh. Na'aseh. Which in Genesis 1:26, let's put that up there as our starting point. Let us make. Now what we're going to do, we want to establish that the other uses of this term, as it appears here, also have to do with a plurality. So, in Genesis 1:26, let us make, and in the other one, we will do, will we do, we will do. Search these passages out if you're familiar with the Hebrew, and you'll see this.